The NPA chief, Shaun Abrahams, says he's no longer going to charge the Minister of Finance, Pravin Gordhan, with fraud, and something that got South Africans very concerned for many months now, with different NGOs, legal experts, prominent public figures, politicians, all pledging to come to the side of the minister come tomorrow. Now that court appearance is no longer going to happen. But what damage did this cause? And that's why we're talking to Jabu Mabuza, who is the leader of Business Unity South Africa. Now, you've already expressed your concerns about the conduct of the NPA head, Shaun Abrahams. What steps do you think need to be taken against him, or what do you think he should do, Shaun Abrahams, to correct what he has just done that obviously you say has caused so much damage?
You know, Tim, we've released a pledge as the CEO initiative supported by all business formations. BBC, BUSA, BLSA have supported, so all organized business have supported this pledge. In that pledge, we have decided that as business, what it is that we stand for and what it is that we will stand against. We spoke about constitutionality, we spoke about the rule of law, we spoke about social justice, transformation, not just narrow interest of profit. We have, therefore, anything that our constitution is based on the institutions that underpin this democracy. It's not the document, it's the institutions. The strength of our country, of our constitution and its resilience, its robustness is based on its institution. These institutions, their policies, their practices, the people that lead these institutions need to understand the responsibility they carry with them. So when an institution like an NPA does what they have done, it definitely undermines the Constitution, it weakens our democracy, and it is subversion in my view. Therefore, leaders and operators in these institutions must understand that the responsibility they carry, they must also understand that they have to account for their actions. For me, the President and Parliament, onto which Chapter 9 institutions report, have to demand accountability. And Mr. Shaun Abrahams must go and account for his actions.
Now, he would argue, Shaun Abrahams, and say, I acted on the case presented to me by the Hawks. And to a large extent, he suggested that there were problems with what he was presented, that new information came to the fore that he previously was not aware of, implying that it was withheld from him. That's how I understood him.
Now, that's terrible admission. If they gave him information that is wrong, as an executive, as a businessman, as a business operator, I make decisions on the basis of timeous, reliable, and accurate information. And if I have made a decision on untimely, inaccurate, unreliable information, I'm gonna do something about whoever gave me that information. But that's not where the matter ends. My board, my shareholders must act on me having acted on unreliable, untimely, or inaccurate information. He can do what he wants to do with his people that have given him wrong information. It is him who brazenly went out and almost with a sense of arrogance made the statements he made about, I'm going to charge it. The day the NPA is not going to be respected are over. I think that made some of us to say, wow, there is a big issue coming here. To come back and then say, well, had they disclosed more information, engaged more, cooperated more, they would have realized this matter could have been settled outside of here. I'm sorry, that's the decision, that's the consideration you should have made before you make this decision.
If I understand you, are calling for his head to roll.
I'm saying the president needs to have some talking. The president called us as business, called us as civil society, called us as South Africans to lower our temperature on things we say that are damaging and they feed into the political noise. Here is a head of the National Prosecution Authority acting in a manner that has been demonstratively been irresponsible, reckless, and subversive.
Now, let's talk the politics of business for a moment. You said the position of the CEOs, the pledge that was signed, comes from CEOs across the board, right, and different business formations. Mr. Mzwane Lemanyi gave an interview on Sunday saying that the CEO's pledge was interference in the prosecuting process in the country and that he was opposed to it. Implication, the Black Business Council was not party to that, and that all are equal before the law, and that the rule of law must take precedence over economic recovery. And I remember I read this quote several times so that I understood it, that, you know, I'm not missing anything. So it suggests that the pledge did not actually include the sentiments of the BBC.
Tim, a couple of things. I know Jimmy quite well. I like him. Jimbo, I call him. I like him. I have just two comments to make about this. The first one, I am representing Business Unity South Africa, BLSA, the chief CEO's initiatives, over 100 South African companies who have got employees, we've got shareholders, we've got suppliers, we've got customers, and the value they represent in the economy. Those are the people on whose behalf I am talking. Those are the people that signed the pledge. The PPC, as represented at the CEO initiative processes, firstly, directly by its Secretary General, George Sibulela, and its Chief Executive, Mohale Ralibitso, and his president before Dr. Baloyi was Mr. Ndabantsele and Mr. Sandile Zungu. These are members of the PPC that have been active, participating. Whenever we go and meet the president, they've always been there. The PPC have expressly signed and supported this. 2-3 days ago, I sat for 2 hours going to Parliament with the current president of the PPC, fully behind the pledge. Two, when we were going to court tomorrow, if that court action was taking place, representing business in that courtroom, we were given 3 seats. Representing business would have been George Sibulela from PPC, Mark Lambetti from BLSA, and myself. So PPC is involved in this. Jimmy has got a view, he's an executive of PPC, but PPC positionally have taken this. So the second point is, I've told you whom I'm representing, and if Jimmy does earn a pensionable salary, any pensionable salary gets affected when the economy gets affected. That 50 billion rand that got wiped out of the economy when this announcement was made, he is affected. So Jimmy, I read the article, but I'm not fazed about, and I know where PPC stands as PPC. Jimmy, I don't know whom he's talking on whose behalf. And the PPC have not written to us and told us they're distancing themselves from this.
Well, I mean, he has argued in other articles elsewhere and on other issues that people who speak in favor of Pravin Gordhan and are trying to defend him or are appealing for sanity are actually captured themselves by white monopoly capital, as it is called.
Let me state this. Tim, we work with Minister Gordhan, we work with the Minister of Finance, we work with Treasury, a highly respected Treasury as one of the institutions we're talking about. Minister Gordhan and his team are highly respected. They've got confidence of the market. We work with that institution. I work with Minister Gordhan as the Minister of State, as instructed and directed by the President of the Republic to work with him. This, our call, has very little about the person, has got more to do about rule of law, process, its transparency, its integrity. The only reason we have pronounced on Mr. Gordhan in our CEO pledge was because Mr. Shaun Abrahams did this in public. So we had to respond to it publicly. The behavior and the actions of these various events that always happen just before major events of national economic significance they were done publicly, required that we respond publicly. The charges have been withdrawn, Tim, but we are going ahead to Pretoria tomorrow as business. We are going to be joining all South Africans, calling for the rule of law, calling for the institutions that are supposed to be enjoying the trust and the confidence of our people to be free of any political factions. That's what we are about. Not about going to court for Pravin, going to court for that which we think we stand for and that which we stand against.
Well, finally, what do you understand the sentiments, as I've just said, of, for instance, Jimmy Manyi and others who say, when you make the case the way you've said and make an appeal to international ratings agencies and investors to view South Africans in a positive light, that you are defending white monopoly capital?
If our economy is characterized that way, that's the only economy I have as a South African. That's the economy I will defend.
Mr. Jabu Mabuza, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you, Tim.
Much appreciated. Well, you can hear that Mr. Mabuza, after putting in many hours, traveling, staying away from home, being part of a delegation that's been traveling around the world to make a case for South Africa, very upset about the behavior of Mr. Shaun Abrahams, the head of the NPA, and of course, not that much impressed with Mzwanele Manyi's views regarding the CEO's pledge. We'd like to hear your views on this matter on Twitter @Tim Modise. Otherwise, write to us. Email, the address is tonight@modise.tv.